All right, look, New York City politics, it's never, ever boring. But the 2025 mayoral election, wow, that was a whole different level. We're talking about a political earthquake that sent shockwaves way beyond the five boroughs. It completely reshaped the city's future. So let's dive right into the incredible story of how this all went down. So get this. On November 4th, 2025, a 34-year-old Democratic socialist named Zohran Mamdani gets elected mayor of New York City. I mean, the youngest mayor in over a century. It was just a stunning, historic victory that almost nobody saw coming. And it was a huge sign, right? Voters were clearly hungry for something completely different, a total break from the status quo. And you better believe the reaction from the national stage was fast and, well, intense. Former President Donald Trump immediately weighs in, calling Mamdani a communist candidate and even threatening to slash federal funds for the city. Just like that, this local race exploded into a full-blown national showdown. But Mamdani, he did not back down. He fired right back. In his victory speech, he totally embraced his identity and the identity of the city itself. And this quote, man, it just perfectly nails the core conflict here, right? You have this progressive, immigrant-led vision for New York on one side, clashing head-on with that nationalist message on the other. So, you're probably asking, how on earth did we get here? It's the big question, right? To really get a grip on this historic upset, we've got to rewind a bit. Let's take a look at the key players who made this race so unforgettable. Okay, so the race basically boiled down to three main contenders, and each one kind of fits a classic political mold. First up, you've got Zohran Mamdani. He's the young progressive insurgent, really tapping into all that frustration over the cost of living. Then there's Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, trying to make a comeback as an independent. He's your return to the traditional centrist power player. And finally, you have Sliwa, the guy who founded the Guardian Angels, running this populist anti-establishment campaign as a Republican. A real cast of characters. Now, what really blew this whole thing open was when the sitting mayor, Eric Adams, dropped out. It was September 28th, right in the middle of a federal corruption case. And just like that, boom. The field was wide open. It created this huge power vacuum that these three guys just rushed to fill. It was the moment that really opened the door for a voice completely different from anything the city had seen before. So, as you can probably guess, what happened next wasn't some polite, quiet debate about policy. No way. It was an all-out war for the soul of New York City, and it was packed with controversies, personal attacks, and just so much drama. Okay, so Mamdani becomes the frontrunner, and immediately he's hit with a ton of attacks. His opponents start digging into everything. They brought up a college application where he identified with his Indian and Ugandan heritage. Andrew Cuomo even falsely accused him of gaming the housing system. But here's the thing. For a lot of voters who were just sick of the usual political mudslinging, these attacks just didn't land. They felt like they were missing the real point, which was the economic stuff that was actually driving the election. Meanwhile, you've got Sliwa running this, well, truly one-of-a-kind campaign. He's positioning himself as an anti-Trump Republican, and then he does something pretty wild. He ditches the iconic red beret. He said it was a distraction from his new pro-worker platform. It was a clear attempt to reach voters way beyond his usual base. And this quote tells you everything you need to know about how intense this race was. So as Cuomo started to fall behind in the polls, people were calling for Sliwa to drop out, right? The idea was to combine the anti-Mamdani vote. His response? It made it crystal clear that he would never, ever step aside to help Andrew Cuomo. It just shows you the deep personal bad blood that in the end stopped any kind of unified front against Mamdani. So with all that chaos swirling around, let's get to the final stretch of the campaign. Let's look at the numbers and see what they were telling us as voters were getting ready to head to the polls. You know, despite all the attacks being thrown at him, the polling data was telling a remarkably consistent story. I mean, look at these aggregate averages from the day before the election. Across the board, Mamdani had a solid double-digit lead over Cuomo. It was a huge signal that his message, the one about real fundamental economic change, was actually cutting through all that political noise. This timeline right here, it really captures the frantic energy of those last few weeks. Right after the debates, you suddenly see all these establishment endorsements rolling in for Andrew Cuomo. We're talking former mayors Adams and Bloomberg. It was this big last-ditch effort to stop Mamdani's momentum. But you know what? It totally backfired. It just made Mamdani look even more like an outsider and painted Cuomo as the candidate of the same old guard. And that brings us right back to where we started, election night. So let's look at the final numbers and try to figure out what this historic verdict actually means for the future of America's biggest city. And there you have it, the final tally. Zohran Mamdani gets just over half the vote, winning by a pretty decisive margin of almost 9 points. This wasn't just a narrow win, it was a clear mandate. Voters chose a brand new, totally untested vision over two of the most well-known figures from New York's political past. In his concession speech, Andrew Cuomo, well, he didn't hold back. He was skeptical, to say the least. He called Mamdani's win a caution flag and warned that the city was headed down a dangerous road. That right there basically sets the stage for some serious opposition from the minute Mamdani takes office. Curtis Sliwa's concession was just as interesting, though. On one hand, he offers this kind of conditional support, right? He says, if he does well, we do well. But then he drops this massive warning. If you try to implement socialism, we will become your worst enemies. So yeah, the political fights in New York City, they are far, far from over. So what's he going to do with this mandate? Well, Mayor Mamdani's agenda hits on the exact issues that got him elected in the first place. We're talking free universal childcare to help out families, city-run bus services, and grocery stores to bring down costs, a totally new approach to public safety. And how's he going to pay for it? By hiking taxes on the wealthy. So look, Mamdani won, and he won clearly. But he's inheriting a city that is deeply divided, and he's facing some incredibly powerful opposition. His election wasn't just about picking a new mayor. It was the city making a huge bet on a radically different future. And now, you can bet the entire country is going to be watching to see if he can actually deliver on those promises.